Welcome to my review of Ryan Tedder's monthly.com class review. So first, introductions. Who am I? Why does my review matter? Well, my name's Jeremy. I've been writing and recording and releasing music as TLNGO for the last couple of years. I've been a guitar player in bands before, way in my past. Just decided within the past couple of years to start recording and releasing music again. You can find any of my stuff at tlngo.net, whether it's songs, video, all my links to my socials are there. So why did I take this class? Well, I was scrolling through my various social media channels over the holiday break, and this caught my eye. This class caught my eye. It was an opportunity for me, a person who's been writing songs for the better part of 20 years, to improve my craft, improve my songwriting craft. I feel like, in general, we can always learn something. We can always get better at whatever skills we have. So I thought this would be a great opportunity to do that. I'd never taken a songwriting class before. I mean, I did in school way back when I learned how to play instruments in school, but I never took really a bona fide songwriting class before. So I figured this would be an awesome opportunity to do that. So a little bit about where we're going to go today. I'm going to talk about the course description itself. I'll talk about some of what Monthly says are some of the value propositions, and I'll tell you what I found from my experience. I'll talk about some of the some more feedback, some good, some bad, some things that are kind of nah. I'll give kind of my final score, whether I think this is a class that's worth taking, and I'll talk about what you might do if you decide to take this class again yourself. So let's get to the course walkthrough. A disclaimer before we get started. I am not going to give away any of the somewhat, I guess, proprietary stuff that Mr. Tedder discloses in his video series. I feel like if you want to know what that information is specifically, you need to do it with context, and you get that context from taking the class itself. And just another bit of a disclaimer too, all the feedback that I'm about to share with you is stuff that I've shared directly with the folks at Monthly. They're really good about asking for feedback. They sent out a feedback form after this class was over. And so all the stuff I'm about to share with you has been told to them already and conveyed to them, and I'm hopeful that they will use it to improve future offerings of this class. One additional thing, so the offering of the class that I went through was the initial offering of the class. This is the class that was offered in January 2021, spanned most of the month of January and ended in February. So if you're watching this video at a later date, if you take a different class, your experience might vary. That's all part of how Monthly has got some value proposition around modifying the way this class runs. So again, your experience might be different than mine. So if you pop up the class description page and you scroll through it, the first thing they talk about is the time commitment. So how much time can you expect to spend? I think 5 to 10 hours is used in the description. My experience, I found it was more than that. Obviously, it's what you make of it, but for me to be able to watch the videos and record and put everything into practice, it took some time. I would tend to think it was probably more like 15 to 20 hours a week, again, depending on how much time you invested. But plan on 2 hours per night. Every single night, and maybe even a little bit harder on the weekends, just to try and polish the stuff that you come up with, because some of the value proposition is in that final product. And so that's the next thing I wanted to talk about. That's the next sort of part of value that Monthly describes as this course delivering. You end with 3 finished songs. In my experience, my personal experience from what I saw, my songs aren't done. I know I'm going to need to spend a little bit more time with them. I've definitely iterated on them and gotten to the point where I think they're in a good spot. Probably do need to record some fixes to lyrics and fine-tuning for sure. The songs themselves are done, but the recordings themselves are definitely not done. Even Ryan Tedder's songs aren't done yet. So part of the class, you walk through him recording multiple songs. He does 3 of them. He does a song that he calls Saved by You, one called Waves, and one called Problems, which he does as a collaboration with Cautious Clay. And I think at the end of that video series for all 3 of them, none of them are truly quite done yet. I think the first 2 that he writes, he's thinking he's going to pitch those to another artist, so those probably are done from a pitching perspective, not necessarily from a final production release perspective. The one with Cautious Clay is more of a collaboration that I think he was looking to hand off to, so perhaps those are done from his perspective, but they're not really ready to upload to a distributor when the class is over, at least in my experience, with my songs that I wrote, but also the other songs that I heard from other people within my peer group. Songwriting levels, so that was another one of the sell points here. It was for any songwriting level, whether it was a new person, a person that had been in the business for a while, etc. I found this to be true, with one major caveat. It seemed to me like the people who were not as familiar with their digital audio workstation that they were using for the class fell way behind. And so whatever digital audio workstation you were using, my experience was people that in the class that had problems were people that weren't familiar with how to use their gear, their laptop, their computer beforehand, and that really threw a wrench in their ability to keep up with the class. Ryan does use Pro Tools, so I don't know if that's your audio workstation of choice, but for what it's worth, he does use that. But the conventions are ultimately the same. I'm a GarageBand user. I do all my recording on an iPad, so I was able to keep up with the class just fine and understand some of the general concepts he was working with. The modules of the curriculum, so how the class is structured. Remember I said he does 3 songs, and so there's 3 songs across 3 modules. First module, Songwriting Fundamentals. This is the one that I found the most valuable. This is where Ryan talks about what heuristics he uses to craft songs, but also shows you what he does. It isn't just a lecture. You're actually watching him on video go through the crafting of writing a song. Now, Monthly did some video editing as it goes, so right, and I can tell this because if you look on his computer, you can see the timestamps and the date stamps. So for the first 2 modules, those were recorded, I think, relatively close to each other. The third module where he collaborates is a little bit separate, but you can see as he iterates how long it takes. He does work fast, he does work efficiently, but by no means is he writing a song in an hour. It's a process to get to the point where he feels like he's fully vetted it and he's got something cool. That's what that Songwriting Fundamentals module is all about. The end-to-end production module, that's a deeper dive into how he actually goes about producing a song, kind of in real time on the fly as he's writing a song too. Again, you'll see him working with Pro Tools a whole lot. He shares his screen, so you'll see on the screen every mouse click that he's making. Cool to see that. Cool to see how he operates. Definitely some conventions there you can use. And capturing an artist's sound, the third module. This is all about collaboration. And so I said earlier, he collaborates with an artist named Cautious Clay on a song. You can see how he builds rapport, understands topics to write about, and all that good stuff. Finally, the classroom. That's the last thing I want to talk about when I talk about the course description. The classroom is basically like a kind of a social media blog feed that has a mix of videos, but also a mix of people's postings. And so the classroom is effectively this circle where you work with your peer group. Again, so like when you sign up, you get put into a group of peers, like 20 or so peers, and you go through the class effectively together. And so you turn assignments in together. There's a syllabus that you follow. You turn in assignments together. You give each other feedback, and you travel through the class together in kind of this social media feed. So a little bit deeper dive into what I thought was good and bad and meh. So the good, you could probably pick up from what I just said a minute ago. Ryan's videos are great. 17-ish videos, probably 15 plus hours worth of content there. Again, they're edited a little bit, but not heavily. They're not cutting out major pieces. You're seeing a lot of him fumble through some of the creative process too, which is helpful. A guy who's written 500 or so songs, I think. It's good to see him fumble. It's good to know that he still struggles trying to find the right melody, the right word combination. You see him playing around on his phone, hitting Rhyme Zone, the website to try and find a rhyming app, is pretty funny. The discipline, for sure. The discipline of this class was really helpful for me and definitely one of the positives. And it definitely got me to establish a cadence to writing that I really appreciated. Last but not least, gear recommendations. So cool to see that part of the class preparatory materials were some really good gear recommendations from Ryan. Not just digital audio workstation and plugins, but like actual hardware kinds of stuff too. And I definitely upgraded my setup in the course of this. And didn't spend an arm and a leg either. I went with he has different recommendations for high price, mid-tier, and value price. And so I went with a lot of the value price options and still I think came up with something that sounds pretty good. Things that I thought were bad. So the feed, the thing that I spoke about earlier, the social media kind of town square where people post, for me it got cluttered really quickly. I went into this class with the full intent to provide as much feedback to my peer group as possible. But the feed quickly becomes cluttered with people from outside your peer group. I asked Monthly, I submitted a ticket to their tech support and asked if there was any way to turn this off or filter out the people that weren't your peer group. They said no, but they took that feedback to heart and will maybe make a change to allow that in the future. It got really unwieldy because I was coming into the class trying to leave feedback to the point that I just ended up defaulting to finding who my peers were and leaving them feedback. The whole peer group concept, I thought, didn't really work that well. Again, perhaps some of this is based on the specific offering and the specific peer group I had, but it's a little bit of a hand wave on the part of Monthly to expect that you're going to really get meaningful feedback from a bunch of people whose songwriting skills may be all over the spectrum. In my peer group, there were songwriters that were clearly just starting out, had very little songwriting experience, very little music experience. So to expect them to give me feedback, a person who's been writing songs for quite a while, or even some of the other people in my peer group, people who are kind of doing this professionally, kind of sketchy. A lot of the feedback seemed like it defaulted to great song, sounds good, can't wait to see where you go with it, good luck next time. So that mixed with the fact that a lot of people in my peer group fell behind, to the point that they just stopped showing up to class effectively. As they stopped turning in assignments, they stopped leaving feedback, and they just kind of fell off the face of the earth really about the middle of the class. I thought that was a definite failure for the whole peer group concept, and one I'd like to see Monthly re-examine. The meh part, so this is like it wasn't good, wasn't bad, but was meh. Ryan's feedback. So in the class description, again, there's no guarantee that Ryan's going to provide feedback. They tell you, hey, he's got access, he might be there, he might be watching what's going on. So of course, that carrot's out there. You're thinking, hey, maybe Ryan's going to listen to my song. The best I could tell from looking at his profile and looking at the feedback he gave, he logged in for 1 2-hour time chunk after the first assignment was due and left 14 feedback comments. All of them on one project, all of them in one short time span, because everything's time stamped. And I guess that's okay. I mean, it was cool to see that he was at least involved at some point, but it was kind of disappointing to see who he left feedback for. He didn't leave feedback for anybody in my peer group. He left feedback to people in other peer groups, and when I looked at some of the people's bios that he left feedback for, a lot of them were like professionals or people that had been in the industry or are in the industry. I didn't see that he really left any feedback for the average Joe, and I guess I was kind of hoping to see some of that. One other, I guess, additional piece of context to provide for that. One of the feedback comments that Ryan left had 800 plus likes on the like button. So I think in terms of total class size, right? So you have your peer group, which is 20-ish people, but in terms of all the different peer groups added up together, I feel like there were 900 to 1,000 people going through it all at once. So if you figure, each of those 1,000 people, just to make the math easy, submits 3 projects throughout the course of this, that's 3,000 opportunities for Ryan to provide feedback. Obviously not going to expect him to provide feedback to even a small percentage of them, but 14 total comments out of 3,000 opportunities, that's an infinitesimally small percentage of people that he provided feedback for. Again, not good, not bad, it's meh. So lastly, would I take this class again? The answer is a resounding yes. I got a lot of value out of the videos that Ryan provided. Definitely some stuff that I put into practice immediately. It was stuff that was, I took notes as I went and watched the videos and was able to put stuff right into practice the moment those videos ended. I love that approach. It's just-in-time learning. It was fantastic. The discipline, too, I thought that was incredibly helpful to understanding how he works. He works 4 to 6 hours per day at this. For me to come in and be a person who does this kind of in his spare time, obviously the mileage may vary depending on that, but I thought it was really great to fall into the habit of doing this for 30 days. Did I become a hit maker in those 30 days? Definitely not. The songs that I wrote tend to be more towards the poppy side, I think, but they aren't top 10 hits. Did I become a better songwriter in 30 days? Undoubtedly. For sure. So lastly, the last topic I want to cover, would I recommend, what would I recommend if you take this class? So a couple things. Before the class begins, clear your schedule. I took the class in January of 2021, and where I live, it's cold and dark outside for much of that time. So it was really great to be able to take this class when there's not a whole lot going on in my social life. There's no nice weather to go out and enjoy. There's no friends' barbecues to go enjoy. It was all cold and miserable outside. So I was able to spend time inside devoted on this. Master your digital audio workstation and plugins. Get all that taken care of. Understand how all that works, because again, my observation was the people that didn't have that nailed down, they got frustrated, they fell behind, and they never caught up. And some of them just quit. Some of them just stopped. Upgrade your gear. So do that again. Gear and digital audio workstation. Get all of that ready to go. Get ready to go before the class begins, because it will make you so much more efficient when class starts. One of the main things that Ryan emphasizes is that anytime you spend screwing around with gear and software is less time that you spend actually writing the song. During the class, again, I'd encourage you to prepare not to be perfect. You're going to iterate on every single song. It's really helpful to be able to post updates to your song. Even if you don't get feedback on it, it's still a helpful thing to get into that habit of posting iterative versions of your song. Keep up with the class. I can't tell you how frustrating this is, because if you don't keep up with the class, you don't have opportunities for feedback. You miss opportunities for feedback on your own stuff, and you miss the opportunity to give other people feedback because you're behind. Act like you're really in school when you take this class. Act like it's a legit request to do homework. And finally, leave feedback for your peers in a timely manner, because ultimately a lot of the people that I took this class with looked for that feedback to make modifications. And if they didn't get that feedback, they didn't make changes to their songs. So again, this was my review of Ryan Tedder's monthly class. I really appreciated the class. You can tell I really enjoyed it. The songs that I wrote, so one final word there, the songs that I wrote are not ready for release yet. I'm happy with where I got them to, but I'm definitely going to spend some time in the near future polishing those up for release and disseminating them out so that you and everybody else can hear them. If you want to hear the songs that I made in Ryan's class, stay tuned. Subscribe to either my YouTube channel or one of my socials. You can find those all at TLNGO.net. Thanks.